Evolution of the Fujita Tornado Rating System. In the early 1970s, Dr. Tetsuya Fujita developed a groundbreaking classification system, following many years dedicated to the study of tornadoes, among the most mysterious forces in nature. His primary method for analyzing these violent storms relied on examining the destruction they left behind. He discovered that the majority of tornadoes were short-lived and relatively weak, inflicting minimal damage. However, others would leave behind trails of devastation stretching across many miles, levels of destruction that defied human understanding. To categorize these storms, he introduced a six-tier scale, ranging from F0 to F5, which enabled tornadoes to be consistently classified based on their impact, using the best available approach at the time. His scale became a pivotal framework in tornado evaluation, especially after the catastrophic 1974 super outbreak. That event firmly established the Fujita scale, not only within the professional meteorological sphere, but also among the general public. In the years that followed, meteorologists working with the National Weather Service honed the systematic practice of tracking tornado paths, pinpointing evidence of destruction, and then assigning a rating using Fujita's scale. However, a problem soon became evident. The original Fujita scale was fairly generalized, with vague descriptions for each category. This lack of specificity led to inconsistencies in interpretation from one damage assessor to another. To resolve this, experts from the fields of meteorology and engineering collaborated to revise Fujita's scale. In early 2007, the enhanced Fujita scale, known as the EF scale, was officially launched by the National Weather Service. This revised version introduced 28 detailed damage indicators, each containing multiple levels of destruction severity. With this system, tornado damage could now be assigned to the updated EF0 through EF5 ratings with much greater precision. Theoretically, this overhaul greatly reduced the subjectivity in storm assessment. However, a core weakness still remained. Controversies surrounding the enhanced Fujita scale. The debate persisted. Structural damage is not a precise measurement of a tornado's actual wind speed. By the time the year 2007 arrived, a limited number of tornadoes had already been analyzed using mobile Doppler radar, an instrument that Dr. Fujita could hardly have imagined back in the 1970s. While damage surveys remained the most consistently applied standard across all tornado paths, this advanced technology was fast becoming the most accurate method available for classification, or so it seemed. Eventually, flaws began to surface in this updated system. It soon became evident that inconsistencies were arising between wind speed measurements taken by radar and the official EF scale classifications. In 2009, a tornado in Wyoming had near-ground wind speeds recorded at 271 miles per hour via mobile radar, just a few feet above the surface. Technically, this surpassed the EF5 threshold of 201 miles per hour. However, the damage survey assigned it only an EF2 rating, corresponding to a maximum estimated wind speed of just 135 miles per hour. This issue came to a breaking point in May 2013 when the massive El Reno tornado struck central Oklahoma. Mobile radar documented wind speeds peaking at 291 miles per hour within the lowest 10 meters of the vortex, clearly above the EF5 criteria. Initially, the National Weather Service office in Norman, Oklahoma classified it as an EF5. But by August, the same office issued a new statement. Despite the radar-confirmed wind velocity, the surveyors did not observe ground damage that justified anything beyond an EF3. While the radar data was acknowledged as accurate, the National Weather Service upheld its policy of basing tornado ratings strictly on observed surface destruction. Thus, El Reno's rating was revised downward from EF5 to EF3. This moment established a critical precedent. Only damage would be used as the basis for a tornado's official classification. Coincidentally, just 11 days earlier, another tornado, also in Moore, Oklahoma, had been rated EF5.
returning to the initial discussion of the so-called EF5 drought. This sequence of events shows that the explanation may not be quite so simple. The matter goes beyond merely incorporating new tools into the process. Even the tried and true method, using structural damage, was beginning to face its own challenges. Several tornadoes categorized as high-end EF4s since Moore's 2013 tornado have displayed destruction that some believe meets EF5 criteria based on comparisons to earlier EF5 rated storms. Key examples often cited within the meteorological community include Valonia, 2014, Rochelle, 2015, Mayfield, 2021, and Rolling Fork, 2023. In the case of Valonia, a well-built family home received a rating of EF4, corresponding to 190 miles per hour winds. This was despite having maxed out the applicable damage scale. Why wasn't it classified as an EF5? The explanation given was, quote, EF5 ratings are not typically assigned based on a single structure alone.
Moreover, that house had been struck by debris from downtown buildings, creating uncertainty about how much of the destruction was caused by the tornado itself versus flying objects. Also, tall, narrow trees were still standing just about 100 yards away. That's 3 separate justifications offered. According to EF scale guidelines, surveyors must verify the degree of damage using context clues around the structure. For instance, if a house is completely destroyed, but a neighboring tree remains with branches intact, then the indicator becomes invalid. Similarly, if a damage marker has been influenced by collateral effects, like heavy, wind-blown debris, then the damage level must be adjusted upward, but not solely based on the tornado's core wind force. These explanations seem reasonable. However, if we rewind to the Moore EF5 event the year before, its highest rated damage occurred in an extremely dense neighborhood where hundreds of homes were affected. Wouldn't these homes also be subjected to collateral debris? Both the Moore and Valonia cases feature heavily stripped hardwood trees in their highest damage zones, so there's consistency there. But in Valonia, some small trees were still standing about 100 yards away. Meanwhile, in Moore, wooden telephone poles were simply leaning, situated about 80 yards from the line of 4 EF5 rated structures. If judged by the same standards used in Valonia, these should have disqualified those structures from receiving EF5 ratings. It's worth noting, these leaning poles were photographed from the air the day after the tornado. They are not the new replacement poles shown later in the official damage assessment tool images. And if a single damage indicator isn't enough to grant an EF5 rating, then technically the 2011 Piedmont, Oklahoma EF5 tornado should also be invalid. That case relied on just one non-standard indicator to assign its EF5 status. All this cross-referencing leads to one conclusion. Although the enhanced Fujita scale was designed to reduce subjective interpretations, it merely introduced more fine-grained complexity. Its use can now vary significantly between different National Weather Service offices. To complicate matters further, exceptions were made in the case of the Piedmont EF5, allowing it to receive its classification despite violating normal protocol. This opened the door to further speculation about future tornado ratings. If we compile every rule and precedent applied to controversial high-end EF4 events, it's possible to go back and question every single EF5 rating ever assigned, with one exception. Parkersburg, Iowa, in 2008 is arguably the only case that stands up to scrutiny when held against the post-2013 standard. Its EF5 status appears to remain the most defensible. Nevertheless, since we now have direct evidence of multiple tornadoes in recent years that clearly met EF5 wind criteria, it raises a deeper question. Could there be a larger reason behind the avoidance of issuing EF5 ratings? Theories behind the EF5 rating gap. All of these justifications have been deliberately applied to justify the absence of an EF5 classification over the past 11 years. Some of the arguments proposing that an EF5 rating is being deliberately avoided even verge into conspiracy territory. The most popular claim, what I personally refer to as the insurance narrative, frequently appears on platforms like Twitter, Reddit, and even in the comment sections of my previous videos. It suggests that the National Weather Service purposely avoids giving EF5 ratings because it is influenced or controlled by insurance companies seeking to reduce compensation payouts to policyholders. However, when you examine this rather sinister accusation more closely, it becomes apparent that insurance settlements have no connection whatsoever to the assigned rating of a tornado. Whether a high-end EF4 or an EF5 obliterates your home to the foundation, the outcome is the same: complete destruction. From the perspective of insurance evaluators, even severe EF3 level damage is often enough to declare a property a total loss. The devastation is already done, classified as an act of God, and beyond any human control. A related claim suggests that EF5 designations are avoided so FEMA doesn't deploy disaster assistance in tornado-affected zones. But again, a minimal amount of research easily disproves this notion. FEMA's emergency aid is not contingent on how a tornado is rated. Just last week, for instance, FEMA support was provided in Palm Beach, Florida, where an EF3 tornado struck a densely populated community. With financial motivations effectively ruled out, could there be another explanation? Some suggest this might boil down to a form of regional favoritism, a bias toward the Great Plains. There's no denying that Oklahoma is widely considered the epicenter of severe weather research, but does that really translate into biased tornado ratings? Since the introduction of the enhanced Fujita scale, there have been 9 tornadoes officially rated as EF5. Of these, 5 occurred in what is traditionally known as Tornado Alley, while the remaining 4 took place in the region referred to as Dixie Alley. However, all 4 Dixie Alley EF5 events happened during the 2011 super outbreak, an exceptionally rare event rivaled only by the super outbreak of 1974. The Deep South is often struck by long-tracked, extremely intense tornadoes in early spring. Many of these storms have been the subject of debates regarding whether they should have qualified as EF5s. The problem, more often than not, is that construction quality in this region tends to be significantly weaker. Mobile homes, infamously vulnerable to tornadoes, are often used as damage reference points. Despite the structural limitations, tornadoes like Rolling Fork in 2023 came incredibly close to breaking the EF5 barrier. It received a 195 mile per hour wind rating, just 6 miles per hour short of the EF5 threshold. Naturally, this raised the question, what exactly differentiates such a high-end EF4 from a bona fide EF5? In the end, there is no statistically verified evidence of regional favoritism when comparing all violent tornadoes rated during the EF scale era across both regions. So, what conclusions can we draw about the reasons for this apparent EF5 drought? There isn't a single definitive cause, but rather a combination of several evolving factors. To begin with, as the EF scale has become more widely adopted, so too has our understanding of how buildings respond to tornado winds. It's been revealed that many common building practices are actually weaker than previously thought and are unable to resist even the upper range EF4 winds. This has contributed to a decline in the percentage of tornadoes that are categorized as violent over the course of the EF scale period. Additionally, the precedents set by past decisions to deny EF5 ratings to certain tornadoes have established a much more stringent standard. It has become increasingly difficult for any damage indicator to meet the requirements for EF5 consideration. For perspective, the 2013 Moore, Oklahoma EF5 had over 4,000 documented damage indicators, but only 9 of them were deemed worthy of EF5 classification. What was once merely rare has now become nearly unattainable, at least when relying solely on damage to human-built structures. Which brings us to the final point. The enhanced Fujita scale while created with good intentions. Final reflections on the EF scale. From its inception, the scale's application and operation faced inherent challenges. Yes, structural damage remains the most uniform and widely used standard for classifying tornadoes. But this raises a critical question. Why hasn't the National Weather Service evolved its practices to incorporate the most advanced tools available? By the time the EF scale was introduced, mobile Doppler radars were already proven to be effective, rapidly improving, and becoming increasingly accessible. While it's true that not every tornado can be tracked by mobile radar, its precision far surpasses any structural damage assessment ever devised. And this isn't just a personal opinion. The authors behind the EF scale made the same point. To quote directly, the technology of portable Doppler radar should also be integrated into the EF scale methodology, either as a direct measurement when obtainable, or to validate expert wind speed estimates. They even emphasized that future improvements would be possible as more experience was gained with the system. Yet, over the last 17 years, we've seen virtually no significant upgrades. Why this stagnation? I can't say with complete certainty, but I suspect the reason is simple. Updating the EF scale just hasn't been prioritized. As a government-run agency, the National Weather Service moves slowly when it comes to innovation. Burdened with outdated IT systems, constant demands for better forecasting, and daily operational pressures, revising the EF scale has understandably taken a back seat. Moreover, the challenge of coordinating between numerous experts across different institutions and agencies, each with their own duties, has made addressing this issue even more difficult. But there is hope. Encouraging developments have emerged from recent meteorological conferences, where new versions of the scale have been previewed. These updated models not only introduce new types of damage indicators, but also incorporate actual wind measurements into the assessment process. For many of us who've long waited for a meaningful revision, this news is truly refreshing. Still, no matter how dedicated the weather science community is to achieving the most accurate rating system possible, there's a sobering reality at the heart of all this. Debating tornado classifications can, at times, feel out of touch with the deeper human cost. Whether a tornado is rated EF4 or EF5, the destruction it leaves behind almost always represents the darkest day in the lives of dozens, hundreds, or even thousands of people. Entire neighborhoods are erased, family homes are reduced to bare foundations, and too often, cherished lives are lost. For survivors, an official rating, no matter how precise, won't rebuild their homes, recover their belongings, or bring back loved ones. I can't predict when we'll next see an EF5, but what I do know is this: whenever it happens, it will be a disaster no one hopes to witness.